In this one-shot tutorial, we are going to make a simple 3D printer animation using the build modifier and a shape key. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to just use the default cube here. So select that, go into edit mode with the tab key, and then we're going to want to start modeling. So we're just going to squish this guy down to something about like that. And this is going to form the base of our 3D printer. So after we scale that down, we're going to go over and we're going to click the loop cut tool, and we're going to put a single loop cut in the middle. And then down here on this panel, you might have to pop it open after you place your cut, but then we're going to bump that up to 2, use the scaling tool, and we're going to scale these guys apart here. And that looks pretty good. We just want sort of a little sliver on each end. And then we're going to throw another loop cut in going the other way. Bump that up to 2 cuts and do the same thing. So we just want this to be about the same on each side. So we have a little square in each corner. Then go into the face select each of those corner squares. And then we're going to hit E on the keyboard to extrude. We're going to then hit escape to cancel the free transform. We're going to change the transform pivot point over to individual origins, and then hit S on the keyboard to scale, and we're going to scale those down just a little bit. Then we can go back up here and choose the median point again, the default, and then we'll select move, and we'll just move these up just a little bit there, so something like that. Then hit E on the keyboard to extrude again. Escape to cancel, or you can just move them up. I like to usually hit escape and then move it with the transform gizmo rather than using the free move. But you'll want to do something like this, about like that. Now we're going to apply a mirror modifier. So go over to the modifiers tab, that's the little wrench. Add modifier, choose mirror. I'm going to go to the Z-axis. We're going to turn off the X-axis. But now we've got it doing that there. What we want is we want this to basically be mirrored vertically on these posts here. So we need to take all of these faces and move them down. So hit A to select all, and then just move them down. And you're going to pull it up until we're about like this. And we're going to turn on the clipping, because this should then sort of stick them together so we can make it bigger if we want. So, and we can actually make these guys smaller. So I'm just shift selecting all of these top faces to then bring them down and make them more in line with the center of the object. And so that's sort of the main cage of our printer. And so now we need to hit tab to go back into the object mode, and we're going to add in another cube. So go up to add mesh, cube, and now we're going to hit S on the keyboard to scale it down, and this guy's going to become our extruder here. So we want it to be, let's say, about like that. That's a pretty good size there. And then tab to go into edit mode, and we're going to select the bottom face, hit E on the keyboard to extrude, escape to cancel the free transform. And then we're going to use the move tool to just move it down, and then S on the keyboard to scale. And this is going to sort of make our little extruder nozzle. So just play with the size of that until you get something about like that. And then we'll just make a little nozzle by doing E to extrude, escape to cancel, S to scale. Scale that down real small, and we'll E to extrude again, and then S to scale. And that's going to be our little extruder nozzle there. I think that looks pretty good. Yes. Okay. Now we're going to take the sides here on each side. So shift select those, and then E to extrude, escape to cancel down. So we're going to go up here and change this to go over to the individual origins again. So we're scaling each of them by themselves. Hit S, we're going to scale that down, and now we are going to do E to extrude, S to scale again, and just scale it down a little bit more. And now we're going to switch it over to the median point, back to the default. Now when we use this scale gizmo out like this, they'll sort of move away from each other. And you just want to do a little bit something like that. And now E to extrude again, and then we can extrude this out. Let's hit 1 on the keyboard, and then we are going to go into the X-ray mode, because what we want to do is we want to stop this thing about halfway between this grid line and this grid line. So we're going to hit S to scale, and then we're going to hit X on the keyboard to constrain us on the X-axis only, and then we can move it out like that. And that's going to be pretty good right there. Let's move it just a little bit more. There we go. And then we're going to extrude again, hit the S to scale, constrain on X again, and we're going to bring that out and extend it just so that it's, again, about halfway between this grid line and this grid line. Now, we're going to rotate around, and we can turn off that X-ray again because we're not going to really need that at the moment. But we want to grab that face, and then the ones behind here and here. And we're going to hit E to extrude, and then we can just extrude these out like this and make it so that they then intersect with the posts. Okay, so there's our extruder. We have our cage now, and now we need to add the object that we will have our 3D printer printing. So I think for this, since it's Blender, it makes sense for us just to use Suzanne. So let's go ahead and add mesh, and go down and choose monkey. And so there's our monkey, good old Suzanne. Now, she's a little bit big for our printer, so let's scale her down a little bit. Hit S to scale, and that's much better. Now, let's move her down so that the bottom of it is sort of resting on the bottom of our printer here. And that's pretty good, I think. I think our printer might be a little bit tall. So let's take the extruder and move it up. And let's take our printer here, go back into tab into edit mode. Take all of these guys. Well, actually, we can go X-rays. Just take this bottom set, use the move tool, and move those guys up, and that's going to sort of squish the whole thing. And now we need to just go back in and move Suzanne up and move our extruder up and get everything sort of lined up. I think that right there will work pretty well. Okay, well, let's go ahead and just name everything to be nice and consistent. So this cube here, we'll call this printer. We'll call the second cube extruder. And then Suzanne, we can leave named Suzanne. Okay, so we want to add a modifier to Suzanne here. So select Suzanne, go to the modifiers tab. We're going to add a modifier, and you're going to use the build modifier. So as you can see, when we scrub through our footage now, Suzanne builds up, but it's not going the way we want it to do. We want it to sort of start at the bottom and build up vertically. So in order to make that work, make sure Suzanne is selected. Hit tab to go into edit mode. We need to hold shift on the keyboard, and then we're going to right click where we want the cursor to go. And so put it sort of just behind her mouth there, just about like that should be good. From there, we need to go up to the mesh menu, and then go down to sort elements and choose cursor distance. And then when we tab back into the object mode, and now when we scrub through our footage, it's going to give us a sort of vertical build. It's still not perfect, but it's going to be good enough for what we're doing here today. So that's the animation of Suzanne moving through. Now you can adjust the start frame over here and how long the animation takes over here. For us, let's go ahead and just bump the start frame, say 12, so it means it finishes there Okay, cool. What we need to do now is animate the extruder so that it will look like it is building up the mesh of the monkey head, because right now it just sort of builds itself. So let's go here, let's get to frame 12 where it's starting to build, and we're going to move our extruder down here to about there. And let's pop out these, this panel over here, go into the item panel, because now we're going to want to put in some keyframes for the location of this thing. So we'll go ahead and hit I on the, over the location to put in a keyframe, and then scrub through to the end. It should end at frame 112. Move the extruder up to the top, and put a keyframe in there by hitting I while hovering your mouse over the location. And now when we scrub through, it goes along with it. It's not perfect, obviously, and so we'll want to make some slight adjustments. Maybe move it up here so it moves a little bit faster at the beginning. I to insert the keyframe. We're just going to make a slight adjustment here. So let's open up the timeline. And then we're just going to move this first keyframe, just the first one, down to, say, frame 6. So that it starts just a little bit before the, I think that works pretty good. Now this later part, we want to maybe bring it down so it's a little bit more in line. Like that. I to insert the keyframe. And let's let it play. I think that works pretty good for me. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to animate this thing moving back and forth and side to side. So in order to do that, we're going to use a shape key. We want to go over to the object data properties here, this little triangle. We're going to insert a shape key. Make sure you're in object mode to do this. And then we're going to insert a second one. So there we have the basis, and then we have the key 1. And so what we need to do now is we need to assign what these two things are. So the basis is going to just be sort of the starting point, and we can go ahead and tab into edit mode, and we're just going to select the sort of center stuff. So we want to get the X-ray tool turned on so we can see everything, and then we're just going to select this here, all of these faces in the middle. We're going to move this over here, so it's about like so, let's say, and that's going to be our basis there. And then we're going to go to key 1. If we hit tab to go back into object mode and then use this value here, if we just click and drag through that, you can see that it blends from the original at 0 into key 1. By the time we hit the 1, then it's fully key 1. And so it's just blending between these two shape keys. And we can animate this property over time. And so we're going to want to have this go back and forth a few times on its way up. So to do that, we'll start here, say on our start frame, hover over the value for key 1, put I to insert a keyframe, and then this seems like a good here. At frame 40, we're going to increase the value here so that it makes it to the back. Put in another keyframe by clicking the little diamond next to it or hovering over with I. And then we can just do the same thing again. Go back to 0. I'm just going to type it in this time. Make sure you click the little diamond next to it to set the keyframe after you change the value. And then we'll do it again, going to the end. Go about like that. And so now, if we scrub through the footage, you can see that the extruder moves back and forth this way. All right, let's see if we can get the extruder moving side to side as well. So we're going to want to put in another shape key. And this one is going to move it to the side. So go into edit mode with the key 2 selected. And then we're just going to move, oops, we want to just select these guys in the middle here. And we want to move that over to one side. Okay. And now if we hit tab, we should be able to then change this value as well and move it side to side. So we'll want to have it do one all the way over on the other side there as well. So let's add another shape key and tab into edit mode, and this time we'll bring it over to this side for that key. Now we probably don't need it that far over. Well, let's go ahead and set it over there. And now we should be able to blend between these different ones and have it sort of sliding back and forth. And so let's go ahead and do that. Let's get back to our first one here, and let's zero this out. And we'll throw in keyframes on both of these keys as well. Go to there. We're going to have it over here. Throw in that. Let's actually put in another one in between, somewhere about there on key 2. Have it going about like that. Let's see how that looks. That's pretty cool. All right, and so let's keep doing that. Let's keep throwing more keys in here. Do one where they come back to the, and just zero them out at the end. I think that's pretty good. That's pretty cool. Okay, so I think that's going to work for us. We don't need to have the animation be quite so long in total. Let's just have it go to, say, frame 150. That should be plenty. Go up, hit File, choose Save. We should put some materials on these guys. Let's turn off that X-ray again, and we'll throw some basic materials on here and then render this out. So let's just make our first printer. What color should we make that? Let's make that like a nice sort of nice blue. That's good. Maybe darken it up just a little bit. And then the printer unit itself, let's throw a new material on there, and we'll make that like black. Not quite black, but let's make it like a shiny black. No, we don't need that. Yeah, let's just bring down the roughness, make it a little shiny. And we can go into the materials preview to take a look at it. I think that looks pretty cool for what we're doing. And then we need Suzanne. So let's go ahead and go forward to where she's into the frame more. There we go. New material on Suzanne. What color should we make her? Let's go with like a nice golden kind of color. I think that's a cool look. Something about like that. That looks nice, I think. And we'll turn down the roughness and make her a nice sort of shiny plastic. Okay, cool. Actually, let's turn the roughness up on the extruder so that we're not seeing quite as much reflection there. Let's set that back to 0.5. We want Suzanne to be the star of the show, of course. And now let's look at it in the rendered perspective mode. Hit 0 to go into your camera, and we want to just sort of reposition things to make this look a little, sort of show off what we're doing here. Reposition this to show this off a little bit more. So Control-Alt-0 will snap the camera to the perspective of your view, select the camera outline, and then hit G on the keyboard to grab, and we're just going to reposition a little bit. We're going to middle mouse button to swing out, switch over to the local coordinate system. Just find it's a little easier to move your camera around like that. And then I think we want to put another light in here. So we're just going to duplicate the light we have, pull out, Shift D, and then we can just pull this down here or into frame. Let's go back to global. Get a little bit better lighting so we can see what we're doing. And into the camera view, and I think that looks pretty good. There's a shadow there that's a little bit too much. So let's just see if we can get that. All right, that's a little bit better. Okay, I think that'll work for us there. Yep, cool. All right, so File, Save. Then now we want to go to our render settings. Select where you're going to save this. Call it that'll work. And then we're just going to change this over to the FFmpeg video. Change the container over to MPEG-4, and that should do it for what we need here. And then up to render and render animation. Okay. And there you have it. There's a real simple little sort of 3D printer effect using the build modifier and some shape keys. If you enjoyed this tutorial, I have other tutorials in the works, so hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on them. And if you really like this tutorial, in the description there is a link to my Patreon. So head on over there, and my supporters get exclusive asset packs and other cool stuff I've made over the years for animation, VFX, video production, Dungeons & Dragons, all sorts of stuff. Alrighty, thanks for watching. Cheers.